Captured and caged. Jason opened his eyes slowly. Everything was blurry. His head was pounding and his arms felt weak. The air smelled strange, like flowers and burning metal. As his vision cleared, he realized he wasn't in his spaceship anymore. He was inside a golden cage. The bars glowed softly, humming with some kind of energy. He looked down. He was only wearing a loose cloth around his waist. No shoes, no tools, no translator, no weapons. Crowds of strange creatures surrounded the cage, staring at him. Their skin was smooth and shiny with colors that shifted like oil in water. Their eyes were large and bright. They pointed and laughed, whispering in a language Jason didn't fully recognize, but he understood the tone. Amused, curious, like they were looking at an animal in a zoo. Suddenly, a loud horn echoed through the hall. The crowd stepped aside. A tall figure entered, walking with power and grace. She wore silver armor that shimmered with light, and her hair floated as if underwater. A golden crown rested on her head. The alien empress. She walked straight toward the cage, eyes locked, on Jason. The guards bowed low. She didn't even look at them. Jason sat still. He knew better than to panic. The empress spoke in her alien tongue. The translator chip, buried in Jason's brain, one he never told anyone about, started working slowly. He acted dumb, tilting, his head like a confused animal. "Is this the human?" she asked with mild disgust. "So fragile, so weak. And they said his kind was dangerous?" Jason stayed quiet, though he understood every word. One of the guards replied, "Yes, Your Grace. He was found near the fire cliffs. No weapon, no ship. Easy catch." The Empress stepped closer to the cage. Her fingers brushed the energy bars, which shimmered at her touch. "He's not very impressive, but I suppose he's exotic enough. A new pet for my throne room." Jason's jaw tightened, but he lowered his head, pretending not to understand. If they thought he was dumb, it gave him time to plan. She snapped. Her fingers. The bars dropped instantly. Jason froze, unsure if this was a trick. Two alien guards entered and grabbed his arms. Not roughly, but not gently either. They led him out like a showpiece. The Empress walked ahead, leading them into a massive throne room filled with gold, flowing water, floating lanterns, and soft music. Jason had never seen anything like it. At the far end, a throne stood on a platform carved from crystal. The Empress sat down and motioned for Jason to kneel. He obeyed. The audience chamber was quiet now. Every step, every sound echoed. The Empress leaned forward and whispered to her advisor, "He's more well-behaved than I expected. Maybe he understands his place." Jason said nothing. They placed a golden collar around his neck, locking it with a click. It didn't hurt, but it burned his pride. He was now a pet, a decoration. Hours passed. Jason was given fruit to eat. Strange, but sweet, and he watched everything around him carefully. He noticed how guards acted. He saw which doors were protected. He even saw a servant drop a metal key near the back wall, and all the while he listened. He learned. He kept pretending. That night, as he lay curled on soft pillows beside the Empress's throne, he heard her voice again. Soft and sad this time. "They all lie to me. I can't trust anyone in this palace, not even my own blood." Jason peeked through half-closed eyes. She wasn't talking to anyone in the room, just thinking out loud. Maybe this creature will be loyal. Pets don't betray. Jason almost laughed, but he held it in. She didn't know the truth. He wasn't just a pet. He was listening, watching, planning, and soon, he'd make his move. Secrets of the Royal Court. Jason sat beside the throne like a silent statue. A golden chain connected his collar to the polished floor. The Empress sat tall on her throne, her silver robes flowing like liquid moonlight. Her glowing eyes stared forward as alien nobles entered the grand hall one by one. He could feel their stares, curious, jealous, some amused, some afraid, but Jason didn't move. He kept his face blank, breathing slowly, his mind sharp behind the mask. They still believed he was just a dumb pet. The court session began. Alien voices filled the hall, deep, sharp, elegant. Jason let his eyes close halfway, pretending to doze off like a lazy animal, but every word was sinking into his mind. The Empress spoke clearly in her native tongue, unaware that Jason's hidden translator chip was decoding everything. The Southern lords grow restless, she said. If they break the peace treaty, the Graxan Empire will see it as weakness. Perhaps they need reminding who rules the stars, said her war minister, a tall male with spikes down his back. Jason remembered him, General Korvac. The way he looked at the Empress made Jason uneasy. It wasn't loyalty in those eyes. It was ambition. Another noble leaned forward. Why not use your new pet to send a message? He said with a cold grin. Let the humans see what happens. To trespassers, laughter echoed. The Empress didn't laugh. No, she said. He amuses me. Jason didn't react, though 1,000 thoughts raced through his head. They were planning wars, plotting moves like a cosmic chess game. And here he was, invisible in plain sight. He wasn't just a pet anymore. He was a spy. Later, when the nobles had left, the Empress stayed behind. The hall was quiet except for the sound of falling water from the decorative fountains. She stood up, walking slowly toward a painting on the wall. Jason noticed it for the first time, an old figure in golden armor, holding a glowing staff. That was my mother, she whispered. She ruled with fire. I must rule with silence. Jason tilted his head slightly. The Empress didn't look back. Do you understand, little human? She said softly. No, of course you don't. But Jason did understand. He understood more than she could imagine. That night he was taken to a royal chamber, less like a cage, more like a guest room, but still locked. There were pillows, soft music, and glowing walls. Yet Jason didn't sleep. Instead, he crept to the edge of the room and placed his ear against the wall. Voices, footsteps, whispering. Something was happening. Using a sharp bone from the fruit he had saved earlier, he loosened the screws from a vent in the corner. Quietly, he slipped inside, crawling through the narrow shaft. He followed the voices until he reached a secret balcony overlooking a private meeting room. Inside stood General Korvac and 3 others in dark cloaks. The Empress is growing weak, one of them hissed. Her strange pet has made her softer. She dreams of peace. We must strike soon. Tomorrow at the moonlight feast, she'll drink from the golden cup and sleep forever. Jason's blood went cold. They were going to poison her. He couldn't shout. He couldn't reveal himself. Not yet. Not until he had a plan. He crawled back through the vent, heart pounding, breath short. Back in his chamber, he lay on the pillows, eyes wide open in the glowing dark. The Empress had spared his life. Now he had to save hers. But how? He had no allies, no voice, no weapons, just a secret and a chance. The Forbidden Room. Midnight in the palace was different. The music stopped. The lights dimmed. Most of the guards were asleep, and the long, golden halls echoed only with the sound of water dripping and soft wind pushing against the crystal windows. Jason sat in the corner of his chamber, staring at the collar around his neck. His fingers touched the small, blinking gem at its side. He had learned to twist it just enough to loosen the magnetic lock. He had practiced for nights without making a sound. Tonight, he opened it. Quietly, he stood and crept to the door. The security light blinked green. He had memorized the pattern when the servant last opened it. One firm press and the door hissed open. He was out. Barefoot and shirtless, Jason moved through the dark halls like a shadow. He passed fountains shaped like floating orbs and walls carved with alien symbols glowing blue. He knew where he had to go. He had overheard it once, the Room of Echoes hidden below the East Wing. It was said to contain old weapons and secrets from before the Empress's time. No one went near it. Jason did. He followed a small servant tunnel and ducked under a golden archway. It was dusty, unused. At the end of the corridor stood a heavy black door with a red symbol on it, a warning. He pressed his hand against it. Nothing. Then he remembered. Earlier, he had seen a palace worker use a broken cleaning tool to unlock a servant panel. Jason reached up, unscrewed a small panel on the wall and crossed 2 wires inside. The door hissed open slowly, groaning like it hadn't moved in years. Jason stepped inside the forbidden room. The air inside was cold, stale. Machines hummed softly in the shadows. Screens glowed faintly with old static. There were glass cases filled with strange tools. Some looked like weapons, others like broken toys. And then he saw it. A silver box with the symbol of Earth on it. The old flag. Jason's heart skipped. Opened the box and found a small device with a blinking light. When he pressed it, a hologram appeared. A human face, flickering, speaking in English. "This is Captain Rachel Wu of Earth Exploration Ship Vanguard. We discovered signs of intelligent life on this world, but we were betrayed. If anyone finds this, beware. The Empress is not what she seems." Jason stared at the message. The date said it was recorded over 200 years ago. He looked around the room again. There were more signs. A cracked spacesuit with the Earth logo, a weapon with human fingerprints, a diary written in shaky English. Humans had been here before, and they were silenced. Suddenly, Jason heard a sound, footsteps. He turned off the device and ducked behind a console. A small figure entered, wearing a hooded robe. The stranger looked around, then walked to the center of the room. Jason stayed, hidden, holding his breath. The figure removed their hood. It was the Empress, but she wasn't wearing her crown or armor. She looked tired, lost. She walked to the silver box and stared at the Earth flag. "They were brave," she whispered in her alien tongue. "I never wanted them hurt, but I was too young then, powerless." Jason's eyes widened. "I only wanted peace." She turned suddenly. Her glowing eyes searched the room. Jason held still. After a few moments, she left, the door sealing behind her. Jason crawled out from his hiding place, heart racing. The Empress knew. She had always known what happened to the first humans. But was she guilty? Or just a prisoner of her own throne? He looked down at the Earth device in his hand. Maybe this was his chance, not just to escape, but to finish what Captain Wu started. The Sea. Spy and the Whisper. Jason walked back to his chamber before the palace lights turned golden again. Dawn was coming. His hands still trembled from what he had seen in the forbidden room. Human records. Secrets buried under dust and silence. And the Empress, alone, speaking to ghosts of the past. He now knew 2 truths. 1, humans had come here before and vanished. 2, the Empress wasn't just a ruler. She was a prisoner, too, of politics, lies, and memories. But none of that. Change the danger. Tonight she would be killed. Jason could feel it. At mid-morning, the palace buzzed with activity. The moonlight feast was coming, a celebration of peace between alien houses. But Jason saw it for what it really was, a trap. He was once again chained beside the throne, sitting silently as royal decorators fixed crystal lanterns and servants rushed with golden plates. Jason watched carefully. Every face, every step, every drink that passed through the kitchen. He wasn't just a prisoner anymore. He was a spy in plain sight. Hours passed. The Empress sat in her silver dress, crown glowing. She looked calm, but Jason noticed her hands were clenched. "Bring the wine," a servant said, holding a cup with golden carvings. Jason's eyes narrowed. That was the cup from the plan, the one they would poison. He couldn't wait any longer. But he had no voice. If he spoke fluent Sirval, his secret would be exposed. The rebels would kill him on the spot, so he used something else. A gesture. When the servant handed the cup to the Empress, Jason made a sharp animal-like sound and rolled suddenly toward her feet, knocking the cup out of her hand. The wine splashed across the golden floor. Everyone froze. Guards moved forward, grabbing Jason by the arms. The Empress stood, eyes flashing. What is the meaning of this? Jason didn't resist. He dropped his head like a guilty pet. But inside, he was screaming, "The truth, don't drink it, it's poison. They'll kill you." But the words stayed trapped in his mind. Then something strange happened. The Empress stared at him and didn't order punishment. Instead, she motioned for silence. She bent down, picked up the broken cup and looked at the floor where the liquid sizzled slightly on contact with the crystal tiles. Her eyes widened. She turned slowly to her guards. "Where did this come from?" No one answered. She stared at General Korvac, who looked too calm, too ready. "You," she said sharply. "Step forward." Korvac smiled. "I think you're overreacting, my Empress." I said, "Step forward." Jason knew it was about to explode. Before the Empress could speak again, one of the wall panels shattered. An assassin, masked and armed, dropped into the feast room from the ceiling beam. Everything turned to chaos. Guards shouted. Guests screamed. Jason broke free of his handlers, grabbed a fallen tray, and threw it hard at the assassin's head. The metal edge slammed into the attacker's mask, knocking them down. The Empress's eyes locked on Jason's, and then, without thinking, Jason spoke clearly in perfect Sirval. "They planned this all. Korvac, the wine, the assassin. I understood everything, from the beginning." Gasps echoed across the hall. The Empress's hand shook. "You understood us all this time?" Jason nodded. "I played dumb to stay alive, but I couldn't let you die." Korvac roared and lunged at Jason. Before he could strike, the Empress raised her hand. A burst of energy shot from her ring, sending Korvac crashing into the wall. Guards rushed to restrain him. The room went silent again. Jason stood still, breathing heavily. The Empress walked toward him, step by step. She raised, her hand not to strike but to gently touch his face. "You're not a pet." "No," Jason said. "I never was." Blood at the banquet. The royal banquet was no longer a celebration. The great hall, once glowing with warm lanterns and laughter, was filled with silence, broken only by the clatter of broken plates and the groans of injured guards. Blood stained the white crystal floor where the assassin had fallen. And in the middle of it all stood Jason, no longer seen as a pet. He stood tall, unchained, surrounded by nobles with wide, terrified eyes. The Empress's hand was still trembling, as she held the glowing ring that had stopped General Korvac. "Take him," she ordered her guards. "Alive. I want answers." Korvac, defeated and snarling, was dragged from the hall, his eyes never leaving Jason. "You should have stayed. Silent human," he growled. "Now you've made yourself a target for every rebel in the stars." Jason didn't reply. He was too busy watching the crowd, because something still felt wrong. He'd stopped the poisoning, he'd exposed one traitor, but the feast wasn't over, and neither was the danger. The Empress called for a private chamber. Jason was brought with her, not as a prisoner, not as a pet, but as someone who had saved her life. Her voice was low, her words careful. "You tricked us all, pretending to be an animal, understanding everything." Jason nodded. "I needed to survive, but I also needed to know who you really were." The Empress raised an eyebrow. "And what did you learn?" Jason didn't blink. "You're not the monster others think you are." For the first time, her face softened, only for a second. But before more could be said, a voice crackled through the palace comms. "Emergency. A breach in the East Wing. They've sent another team, heavily armed." The Empress stood quickly, summoning her guards. Jason stepped forward. "Let me help." She stared at him. "You're unarmed." Jason smiled slightly. "I've survived worse. And I'm not your pet anymore." She hesitated, then handed him a blade. Slim, glowing blue. "Then fight beside me." The East Wing was under attack. Explosions shook the halls as masked rebels poured through broken walls. Servants screamed. Guards clashed with shadowy figures and smoke filled the corridors. Jason moved through the chaos like fire. He ducked a blast, rolled under a falling beam, and sliced through an enemy's arm with the alien blade. The rebels didn't expect him to fight. They thought he was just decoration. Now he was their nightmare. Behind him, the Empress moved like a storm, deadly, graceful, unafraid. Together, they fought back to back. For a moment, it didn't matter that they came from different worlds. They were surviving together. Then Jason saw her, a young servant girl cornered by two rebels. Without thinking, he threw his blade, striking one attacker in the shoulder. The second lunged at him, claws out. Jason blocked with his arm, taking a deep slash, but managed to kick the rebel back into a burning curtain. Flames swallowed him whole. The Empress rushed to Jason's side. She pressed her hand to his bleeding arm, activating a glowing healing patch. "You risked your life for her." Jason looked up, panting. No one should be alone in a war. For a moment, her eyes looked at him, not like a ruler looks at a subject, but like a woman looks at someone she finally understands. Then behind her, a shadow moved. Jason's eyes widened. "Behind you!" Too late. A rebel hidden in the rafters jumped down with a blade aimed at the Empress's back. Jason didn't think. He threw himself forward, slamming into her, taking the full hit across his back. He screamed, but kept standing. Guards swarmed the rebel and brought him down. Jason collapsed to the floor, blood pouring from the wound. The Empress caught him before he hit the ground, fully holding him in her arms. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You're not allowed to die." Jason smiled faintly. "So, I'm more than a pet now." She laughed through tears. "You always were." A human among gods. Jason's body lay still, in the healing pod, surrounded by glowing blue light. His shirtless back was covered in deep wounds from the rebel's blade. Alien medical drones floated above him, patching flesh, sealing torn muscles, injecting strange glowing medicine into his veins. Outside the pod, the Empress stood silently, her hands shaking. No one dared speak. She had carried him from the battlefield herself. Not a servant. Not a guard. Her, the Empress of Zirval. Hours passed. When Jason's eyes finally opened, the first thing he saw was her face. She was sitting beside the pod, her silver crown resting on the table, her armor off, her hair loose. She looked tired, real. "You should have let me die," Jason croaked. She blinked. "I should have never chained you." Jason slowly sat up, pain sharp in every breath. "The rebels fled, for now," she said. "They fear you now, the human who bleeds for their Empress." Jason chuckled weakly. Not bad, for someone who was once called a pet. She smiled, but only for a second. Then her face turned serious. "You risked everything. Why?" Jason looked into her eyes. "Because I saw who you really are. A queen trapped in chains just like me." The Empress looked down at her hands. She didn't argue. Later, Jason was moved to her. Personal chambers, a rare honor no outsider ever received. No collar, no chains, just quiet. As he walked the halls, nobles stared with wide eyes. He was no longer a decoration. They now whispered his name like a legend. The human who saved the Empress. He took the blade meant for her. He speaks our tongue. Perfectly. In the throne room, the Empress stood before the council. "Let it be known," she declared. Jason of Earth is not a pet, not a prisoner. He is a guest of the crown, a warrior of Xirval. Silence, then murmurs. Then one bold voice spoke. But he's still a human, beneath us. The Empress's eyes flashed. He bled more for this empire than any of you ever did. Jason stepped forward, calm but strong. I didn't come here to rule or take power. I only want peace, just like your Empress. And something strange happened. A few nobles bowed their heads. One even dropped to one knee. In a court of gods, Jason, a human, had earned respect. That night, the Empress invited him to her sky garden. Stars stretched forever above them, glowing rivers of light flowing through alien skies. Soft music played from hidden crystals. Giant flowers bloomed under moonlight, releasing sweet scents into the wind. Jason stood at the edge of the balcony. I never imagined this, he said. Me, on another world, called a hero. The Empress walked beside him, and I never imagined trusting a human, let alone caring for one. He looked at her. Do you? She didn't speak. She just reached out, took his hand gently in hers. No chains, no commands. Just touch, just truth. But peace never stays long. A message came through the star chamber. The Graxan Empire had declared war. They saw the Empress's weakness, her kindness, her trust in a human. Jason read the transmission in silence. They want to break you, he said, because you changed. She nodded. Then I must show them. I am still strong. Jason stood. Then let me stand with you. Let me fight not as your pet, not as your guest, but as your equal. The Empress looked at him. A moment passed, then she whispered, Prepare for war, Jason of Earth, because tomorrow, the gods go to battle. Her pet no more. The skies above Xirval turned red. Giant warships blocked the stars, their shadows falling over the Crystal Palace. The Graxan Empire had come, metal beasts with weapons that could burn moons, led by generals who laughed at mercy. Inside the throne room, the Empress stood in full armor. Her silver suit shimmered like starlight. Her crown was gone. Her face was steel. Beside her stood Jason. He wore light alien armor, fitted to his human body. A sword of glowing plasma hung on his side. The wounds on his back still ached. But he didn't care. He had made a promise, and he was ready to keep it. The war began with a soundless blast, one that shattered 3 outer towers. Guards rushed to their posts. The city shields flickered under pressure. Explosions painted the horizon. But the palace stood strong, for now. Jason and the Empress stood in the command chamber, watching the enemy ships approach. They think we'll surrender, she said, quietly. Then we show them what one human and one Empress can do, Jason replied. She looked at him. Not as her pet, not even as her soldier, but as her equal. Then let's make them regret ever coming here. Hours passed. Jason led the charge, through the broken eastern wall, his blade cutting through Graxan soldiers with speed and fury. Alien warriors followed him, shouting war cries in his name. For Earth, for Xirval, for the human who became one of us. The Empress fought beside him, her hands glowing with power, her eyes blazing. Together, they turned the tide. But then, the enemy released their final weapon. A giant war machine shaped like a beast of legend, stomped into the palace courtyard. Its body was metal and fire. Its mouth glowed with energy strong enough to melt towers. The alien soldiers froze. Even the bravest guard stepped back. Jason looked at the Empress. I'll distract it. You take the core. She grabbed his hand tightly. If you die, then let them remember me as the human who made the stars shake. He kissed her hand. Then he ran straight toward the beast. The machine roared. Its metal claws tore through the ground as it chased Jason through the burning courtyard. He leapt onto its leg, climbed its side, stabbed deep into its joints. The Empress, using his distraction, flew high above, then dropped straight onto the core chamber hidden on the beast's back. Together, they struck. Jason's sword dug deep into the control heart. The Empress blasted the energy core with her power ring. With a scream of metal, the beast exploded, raining fire and sparks across the battlefield. Silence followed. The enemy ships turned and fled. The war was over. Later, as the sun rose behind broken towers and cracked stone, the Empress stood on the palace steps. Her people gathered below, soldiers, nobles, workers, servants, all waiting. She stepped forward, holding Jason's hand. This human was once brought here as a pet, a prisoner, a joke. She looked around, but he became my protector, my equal, my heart. Gasps, murmurs. Jason stood tall, not speaking, letting her voice carry. Let all worlds hear this. Jason of Earth is no longer a pet. He is a prince of Xirval, chosen not by blood, but by honor. The crowd erupted in cheers. Some bowed, some wept, and some looked at Jason with eyes full of awe. He had changed everything. That night, Jason stood on the same balcony where it all began. No collar, no chains, just stars above him, and the Empress beside him. She touched his cheek gently. Do you regret anything? Jason shook his head. Only that I waited so long to speak. She smiled, then leaned forward and kissed him under the twin moons. Not as a ruler, not as a master, but as the woman who fell in love with the human who dared to rise